The bridge of the S horizon hummed with quiet energy as Captain Vincent Cole stared at the view screen. Stars stretched endlessly before him, tiny points of light against the infinite black. For 3 months, his crew had been pushing deeper into space than any human had ever gone. They were alone out here, millions of miles from Earth, testing a new engine that promised to change everything. Cole was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 20 years in space, watching humanity slowly reach for the stars. They had colonies on Mars now, mining stations in the asteroid belt and research outposts scattered across the solar system. But they were still alone. No aliens, no signals from distant worlds, just silence. Behind him, Dr. Helen Grant worked at her station, reviewing data from their latest test. She was in her 40s, with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun and glasses that constantly slipped down her nose. Helen had devoted her entire career to the search for alien life. She had prepared protocols for first contact, studied biology that might exist on other worlds, and dreamed of the day humanity would finally meet someone else. But year after year, the universe remained empty. Lieutenant Kyle Brooks sat at the tactical station, monitoring the ship's defenses. He was younger than the others, maybe 30, with short blonde hair and a constant smirk. Brooks had a dry sense of humor that kept the crew sane during long missions. Right now, he was running diagnostics on weapons they had never fired in combat and probably never would. The Horizon was humanity's most advanced ship. It carried experimental engines that could bend space, allowing faster travel than ever before. The technology was new, barely tested, and dangerous. But if it worked, humanity could explore the galaxy in decades instead of centuries. Cole checked their position. They were beyond the heliopause now, past the edge where the sun's influence faded into interstellar space. This was the boundary, the line between home and the vast unknown. In a few hours, they would activate the new drive and make the first real jump. If everything went right, they would travel 100 light years in seconds. If something went wrong, they might tear the ship apart. Helen looked up from her screen. Her voice was calm but excited. She had been waiting for this moment for years. She told Cole that all systems were ready. The engine was charged. They could begin whenever he gave the order. Cole nodded slowly. He felt the weight of the decision. This was it, the moment that could change everything. He gave the command. Brooks acknowledged and began the countdown. 30 seconds, 20, 10. The engine came online with a deep thrumming sound that vibrated through the hull. Energy readings spiked across every console. The view screen flickered as space around them began to distort. Then something unexpected happened. The ship lurched violently and alarms blared across the bridge. Cole gripped his chair as the horizon shook. Brooks called out that they had a massive energy surge. Something was wrong with the containment field. Helen checked her instruments and reported that the engine was destabilizing. But it was not failing. It was reacting to something. There was an anomaly outside the ship, something they had not detected before. Cole ordered them to shut it down. Brooks hit the emergency cutoff and the thrumming died. The bridge fell silent except for the beeping of warning systems. Helen stared at her screen, her face pale. She told Cole that the engine had triggered something, a barrier of some kind. It surrounded the entire solar system. They had lived inside it their whole lives and never knew it was there. Cole felt a chill run down his spine. A barrier around Earth, something that had hidden them. He asked Helen what it was. She shook her head. She did not know. It was made of dark matter and gravitational anomalies, but it was too precise to be natural. Someone or something had built it, and now that they had touched it, it was starting to break apart. Across the galaxy, in a sector marked as empty space on every map, Commander Zara Theln sat in the command chair of her ship. She was reviewing reports from another boring survey mission when her science officer, Orven, suddenly called out in alarm. Theln looked up sharply. Orven was usually calm, methodical, and hard to surprise. Seeing him excited was unusual. Orven explained that they had detected a massive energy spike. It came from a dead zone, a region of space that had always shown up as empty on their scanners. But now something was there. A whole star system. And it was transmitting energy readings that matched advanced technology. Theln was a craving, a species known for their logic and discipline. She had short dark hair, pale blue skin, and eyes that missed nothing. She had been in the military for 15 years and had seen most of what the galaxy had to offer, or so she thought. She stood and walked to Orvan's station. She asked him to confirm the readings. Orvan ran the scan 3 more times. Every result was the same. There was a star system where there should be nothing. The readings showed a single yellow star with multiple planets. One of them was in the habitable zone, and there were artificial structures, ships, stations. This was not a natural occurrence. This was a civilization. Thelm felt a rare moment of uncertainty. The Galactic Council had been mapping the universe for over 50,000 years. Every intelligent species had been catalogued. Every star system explored. There were no hidden civilizations. It was impossible, yet here was proof. She ordered her fleet to change course. They would investigate immediately. Orvan asked if they should report this to the Council first. Thelm considered it but shook her head. If this turned out to be nothing, a sensor glitch or a strange anomaly, she would look foolish. Better to confirm it first. Then they would notify the proper authorities. She told Orvan to prepare the crew for first contact protocols, just in case. Back on the horizon, Cole stood in front of the view screen as Helen displayed what they had learned. The barrier around their solar system was breaking down. Whatever had hidden Earth for thousands, maybe millions of years, was failing. And the cause was their engine test. They had accidentally knocked on a door they did not know existed. Brooks asked the obvious question. If something had hidden Earth, who built it and why? Cole had no answer. Helen suggested it might have been a natural phenomenon, something rare but not impossible. Brooks was not convinced. Natural things did not collapse the moment you touched them. This felt intentional. Then the sensors picked up something new, ships. Multiple contacts moving toward them at incredible speed. Cole's stomach dropped. They were not alone anymore. Brooks called out 5 contacts, then 10, then 20. A whole fleet was approaching. Cole ordered battle stations, then hesitated. If these were hostile, the Horizon stood no chance. Their weapons were designed for defense against asteroids, not alien warships. Helen grabbed Cole's arm. She told him they had to try communication first. This was first contact. It could be the most important moment in human history. Cole took a deep breath and nodded. He ordered Brooks to power down weapons and raise shields instead. Then he told Helen to send a message. Helen worked quickly. She composed a transmission using basic mathematics, universal constants, and simple patterns. It was crude, but any intelligent species should recognize it as an attempt at communication. She sent it on all frequencies and waited. The alien fleet continued to approach. Seconds felt like hours. Then the response came. A signal, clean and deliberate. It was not language yet, but it was acknowledgement. Someone out there had heard them. Helen's hands shook as she worked to decode the patterns. She called out that they were using similar principles, mathematics, physics. They were trying to establish a baseline for communication. Over the next hour, messages went back and forth. Simple concepts at first. Numbers, shapes, chemical elements, then more complex ideas. Helen was sweating, her eyes glued to the screen as she raced to build a translation matrix. Brooks kept watch on the approaching fleet, which had slowed but not stopped. Cole stood silent, his mind racing with possibilities. Finally, Helen let out a small cry of triumph. She had it. Not a perfect translation, but enough to communicate basic ideas. She sent a message identifying themselves as humans from Earth, explorers on a peaceful mission. The response came quickly. The aliens identified themselves as Kravine, part of something called the Galactic Council. They were requesting a meeting. Cole agreed. What else could he do? He specified neutral space, halfway between their positions. The Kravine accepted. 2 ships would meet, one from each side. Cole chose the Horizon. He was not about to send anyone else into the unknown. As the Horizon moved into position, Cole felt the enormity of what was happening. Humanity was about to meet another intelligent species. Everything they knew about the universe was about to change. He looked at his crew. Helen was nervous but focused. Brooks tried to look calm, but his jaw was tight. They were all scared, but they were also ready. The Kravine ship appeared on the view screen. It was huge, easily 10 times the size of the Horizon. Its hull was smooth and dark, covered in strange patterns that might have been writing or decoration. It moved with grace, precise and controlled. Whoever these aliens were, they had been traveling space for a long time. Theln stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the human vessel approach. It was small, almost primitive compared to Council ships. The design was functional but crude, like something a species might build in their first attempts at interstellar travel. But the fact that it was here, this far from its home planet, suggested more capability than appearances indicated. Orven studied the scans and reported his findings. The human ship used chemical rockets for maneuvering, fusion reactors for power, and had just attempted some kind of spatial distortion drive. It was primitive by Council standards, but functional. More impressive was how quickly they had established communication. Most emerging species took weeks to reach this level of understanding. The humans had done it in an hour. Theln ordered visual communication. She wanted to see these humans. A moment later, the screen flickered and showed the interior of the human bridge. 3 figures stood there, bipedal and remarkably similar to several other species in the galaxy. The one in the center, presumably the captain, raised his hand in what might have been a greeting. Cole stared at the alien commander. She looked almost human with 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth. But her skin was pale blue and her features were sharper, more angular. She wore a dark uniform with symbols he did not recognize. Behind her, he could see other aliens working at stations. The technology was far beyond anything Earth had produced. Theln spoke slowly, knowing the translation would be rough. She introduced herself and explained that the Kraven were explorers and peacekeepers for the Galactic Council. She said they were surprised to find humans here. This region of space had always appeared empty on their maps. She asked how long humanity had been traveling the stars. Cole chose his words carefully. He explained that humans had only recently achieved interstellar capability. They had been exploring their own solar system for decades, but had never encountered another species. They believed they were alone. He paused, then asked about the barrier that had hidden Earth. Theln looked to Orven, who quickly analyzed the data they had collected. He explained that the barrier appeared to be a natural phenomenon, a dense cloud of dark matter combined with gravitational anomalies. But its structure was too precise. It had clearly been modified or created by advanced technology. The question was by whom and when. It was old, possibly millions of years old. Cole absorbed this information. Someone had hidden Earth deliberately, protected it or isolated it, he was not sure which. He asked Theln about the Galactic Council. She explained that it was a union of thousands of intelligent species, governing trade, diplomacy, and peacekeeping across the galaxy. Most species joined voluntarily when they reached a certain level of development. Helen spoke up, asking how many species were part of the council. Theln consulted her systems and said there were approximately 7,000 registered civilizations, ranging from early space explorers to ancient empires that had existed for hundreds of thousands of years. The council maintained order, prevented wars, and ensured that younger species were guided properly into galactic society. Brooks muttered that it sounded like a bureaucracy. Cole shot him a warning look, but Theln surprised them by agreeing. She admitted that the council could be slow, rigid, and frustrating, but it also prevented chaos. Without it, stronger species would dominate weaker ones. Wars would be constant. The galaxy would burn. Cole appreciated her honesty. He asked what happened now. Theln explained that typically when a new species was discovered, ambassadors would be sent. There would be evaluations, discussions, and eventually an invitation to join the council. But humanity's situation was unusual. They had been hidden, isolated for reasons unknown. That complicated things. Orven leaned forward with curiosity. He asked about human history, their development, their technology. Helen took over, explaining as best she could. She talked about Earth's long history, the rise of civilization, the development of science. She admitted they had gone through terrible wars, almost destroyed themselves multiple times, but they had survived. They had learned. Orven listened intently, then shared something that made the humans uneasy. He said that most species took tens of thousands of years to reach spaceflight after developing basic tools. Humanity had done it in less than 10,000 years. Even more remarkable, they had gone from first flight to interstellar travel in just over a century. That rate of advancement was almost unheard of. Theln's expression grew more serious. She asked about human military capabilities. Cole hesitated. He knew how primitive their weapons would sound to a civilization this advanced, but he answered honestly. Humanity had nuclear weapons, missiles, basic energy shields, and kinetic projectiles. They were designed to fight each other, not aliens. The Horizon carried defensive weapons, but nothing that could threaten a ship like hers. Brooks added something that surprised everyone. He said humanity's real strength was not their weapons. It was their ability to adapt. Humans were good at improvising, at finding solutions to impossible problems. They fought dirty when they had to. They did not give up. Cole wished Brooks had stayed quiet, but the words were out now. Theln studied the humans for a long moment. She saw something in them that concerned her. They were not like other emerging species. Most were eager, naive, easily impressed by advanced technology. These humans were cautious. They measured their words. They evaluated her just as much as she evaluated them. They knew they were outmatched but refused to show weakness. She told Cole that she would need to report this discovery to the Council. Official ambassadors would be sent to Earth. Humanity would be offered membership, which came with benefits and responsibilities. Trade, protection, access to advanced technology, but also rules. Council law would apply. Weapons deemed too dangerous would need to be dismantled. Human affairs would be subject to Council oversight. Cole listened carefully. When she finished, he thanked her for the information. Then he said something that shocked Theln. He told her that humanity would need time to consider. They had just learned they were not alone. They needed to consult with their government, their people. They would not make any commitments without careful thought. Theln blinked. No species had ever asked for time to consider Council membership. It was not a request that could be delayed. Joining was inevitable. She started to explain this, but Cole politely interrupted. He said that humanity had survived for thousands of years by being careful. They did not rush into agreements they did not understand. They would cooperate, communicate, and learn, but they would not be pressured. Orven looked amazed. He whispered to Theln that this was unprecedented. No one refused the Council. Theln raised a hand to silence him. She studied Cole's face, searching for deception or foolishness. She found neither. These humans meant what they said. They were not hostile, but they were also not submissive. Theln made a decision. She told Cole that she would convey his message to the Council. She warned him that some members would not be pleased. The galaxy operated on certain expectations. Emerging species were supposed to be grateful for guidance. They were supposed to accept their place. Humanity was already breaking those expectations. Cole appreciated the warning. He asked Theln for her personal opinion. She was silent for a moment, then spoke with careful honesty. She said humanity concerned her, not because they were hostile, but because they were unpredictable. The Council dealt with thousands of species, but they all followed patterns. They developed in similar ways, made similar choices. Humanity did not fit the pattern. That made them dangerous, whether they intended to be or not. Helen asked if that was a threat. Theln shook her head. It was an observation. She had seen what happened when civilizations clashed. She had seen wars that lasted centuries, genocides that wiped out entire species. The Council existed to prevent those tragedies, but it only worked if everyone followed the rules. She hoped humanity would understand that. Cole assured her that humans did not want war. They wanted peace, exploration, and understanding, but they also wanted independence. They had fought too hard for their freedom to give it away easily. The Council could respect that. They could work together. If not, humanity would find its own path. The meeting ended with an exchange of data. Theln provided information about the Council, basic star charts, and contact protocols. Cole shared information about Earth, humanity's history, and their current technology level. It was not everything, but it was a start. Both sides knew this was only the beginning of something much larger. As the Kravine fleet prepared to leave, Orven pulled Theln aside. He told her they had to report this immediately. The Council needed to know about humanity before they developed further. If left alone, they could become a serious problem. Theln agreed but felt uneasy. She had dealt with dozens of emerging species, but none had made her this nervous. She watched the human ship on the view screen. It was small and crude, barely capable of interstellar flight, but the people inside were not weak. They were survivors. They had climbed from primitive beginnings to reach the stars in an impossibly short time, and they had done it alone, with no help, no guidance, no protection. That kind of independence was rare in the galaxy. It was also terrifying. On the horizon, Cole stood in silence as the alien fleet vanished into faster-than-light travel. Helen sat at her station, overwhelmed by everything they had learned. Brooks made a joke about alien politicians, but his voice was tight with tension. They all felt it. The universe had just become infinitely larger and infinitely more complicated. Cole ordered a course back to Earth. They had to report this immediately. Humanity needed to prepare. The galaxy was real, filled with thousands of civilizations, ancient empires, and complex politics, and Earth was now visible to all of them. The secret was out. The barrier that had protected them for millennia was gone. Helen asked what would happen now. Cole had no answer. He knew the council would send ambassadors. There would be negotiations, pressure to conform, expectations to meet. Humanity would have to decide what kind of future they wanted. Would they join the galactic community and accept its rules? Would they isolate themselves and risk being left behind? Or would they forge their own path, regardless of what the galaxy expected? Brooks said quietly that whatever happened, Earth would not bow easily. Humans were stubborn. They had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and near extinction. They had clawed their way to the stars through sheer determination. They were not about to give up their independence now. Cole hoped Brooks was right, but he also knew that stubbornness could only take them so far. The Kraven were just one species in a galaxy of thousands. Some would be peaceful, others would not. Humanity was no longer hidden. They were exposed, vulnerable, and far behind in technology. The only advantage they had was their unpredictability. As the horizon made its way home, Cole stared at the stars. For his entire life he had believed humanity was alone. Now he knew the truth. The galaxy was crowded, ancient, and watching. Earth had been a secret for millennia, hidden behind a barrier built by someone long forgotten. But that secret was out now, and the galaxy was about to discover what humanity truly was. Across the void, Theln sent her encrypted report to Council headquarters. She detailed everything they had learned, emphasizing humanity's unusual development and their refusal to immediately accept Council membership. She included warnings about their rapid advancement and unpredictable nature. Then she added a personal note. She recommended caution. Humanity was not like other emerging species. They were survivors, adaptable and fiercely independent. Forcing them into submission would be a mistake. The message traveled across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds, reaching the council chambers within hours. There, it was received by thousands of delegates representing every major civilization. The news spread quickly. A hidden species, a secret world, a civilization that had developed in complete isolation. It was unprecedented, impossible, and deeply concerning. Debates erupted immediately. Some delegates dismissed humanity as irrelevant, another primitive species that would eventually fall in line. Others saw them as a potential threat, a wild card that could destabilize the careful balance of power. A few saw opportunity, a new market for trade or a potential ally, but everyone agreed on one thing. Humanity needed to be dealt with quickly before they became a problem. Back on Earth, the horizon approached home after weeks of travel. Cole stood on the bridge, watching the blue planet grow larger on the screen. He had left Earth as an explorer, pushing the boundaries of human achievement. He was returning as a messenger, carrying news that would change everything humanity believed about their place in the universe. Helen worked beside him, preparing the report. She had documented every moment of the encounter, every piece of data they had collected. Brooks ran security checks, making sure their systems had not been compromised. They were all exhausted, running on adrenaline and coffee, but they could not stop now. Earth needed to know. As they entered Earth's orbit, Cole sent a priority transmission to the United Earth Council. He requested an emergency session with all world leaders. The message was brief but clear. Humanity was not alone. First contact had been made, and the galaxy was waiting for Earth's response. The transmission sparked chaos on Earth. News networks erupted with speculation. Religious leaders debated the theological implications. Scientists demanded access to the data. Military commanders prepared for the worst. Politicians argued about who should speak for humanity. Within hours, the entire planet knew. The secret was out. Earth was no longer hidden, and the universe would never be the same. The emergency session of the United Earth Council convened in Geneva within 24 hours of the Horizon's return. Leaders from every nation gathered in a massive chamber, their faces displayed on screens that covered the walls. The room buzzed with tension as Captain Vincent Cole stood at the center podium, preparing to deliver his report. Cole had barely slept since landing. He had been debriefed by intelligence agencies, military commanders, and scientists who could not believe what they were hearing. Now he stood before the most powerful people on Earth, about to tell them that everything had changed. He took a deep breath and began. He explained the mission, the engine test, and the barrier that had hidden Earth for millennia. He described the Craving fleet, the first contact, and the conversation with Commander Thelm. He told them about the Galactic Council, an organization of 7,000 civilizations that governed most of the known galaxy, and he explained that humanity had been invited to join. The chamber erupted in noise. Questions came from all sides. Some leaders demanded to know why Cole had not accepted the invitation immediately. Others wanted to know if the aliens were hostile. A few insisted this was a hoax, despite the mountains of data supporting his claims. Cole raised his hand for silence and continued. He told them that joining the council came with conditions. Humanity would gain access to advanced technology, protection, and trade networks. But they would also have to follow council laws, submit to oversight, and dismantle weapons the council deemed too dangerous. Their independence would be limited. Their choices would be monitored. Earth would become just another member of a massive bureaucracy. Dr. Helen Grant stepped forward to present her findings. She displayed images of the Craving ships, their technology, and the data they had collected. She explained that humanity was centuries behind in most areas. Energy shields, faster than light travel, advanced materials, all of these were common in the galaxy. Earth's most advanced weapons would barely scratch a council warship. But Helen also noted something important. Humanity's rate of advancement was extraordinary. Most species took tens of thousands of years to reach spaceflight. Humans had done it in a fraction of that time. Their ability to adapt, innovate, and solve problems was unusual. The Craving had noticed this. They were both impressed and concerned. Lieutenant Kyle Brooks gave the military assessment. He was blunt and direct. If the galaxy wanted to conquer Earth, they could do it easily. Humanity's weapons were designed to fight each other, not aliens with technology centuries ahead. Any war would be one-sided and brief. Earth's only advantage was that conquering them might be more trouble than it was worth. Admiral Patricia Lawson stood to address the council. She was a tall woman with silver hair and a reputation for strategic thinking. She had spent 30 years in space defense, preparing for threats that never came. Now those threats were real. She told the assembled leaders that humanity faced a choice. They could accept council membership and hope for the best. They could refuse and risk isolation or worse, or they could negotiate from a position of carefully managed strength. Lawson explained that strength did not always mean superior weapons. It meant unpredictability, determination, and the willingness to make any fight costly. Humanity had survived ice ages, plagues, and world wars. They had nearly destroyed themselves multiple times and always found a way to continue. That resilience was their greatest weapon. The galaxy had to believe that conquering Earth would not be worth the price. The debates went on for hours. Some leaders argued for immediate acceptance. They believed humanity needed the Council's protection and technology. Others demanded isolation. They wanted Earth to remain independent even if it meant being left behind. A few suggested a middle path, engaging with the galaxy while maintaining sovereignty. Cole listened to it all, growing more frustrated. Finally, he interrupted. He reminded them that the Council would not wait forever. Ambassadors were already on their way. Earth needed a unified response, not endless argument. He suggested they authorize a negotiating team with clear goals. Engage with the galaxy, learn what they could, but refuse to surrender Earth's independence. After another hour of debate, the Council voted. Cole would lead the negotiating team, supported by Admiral Lawson and Dr. Grant. They would have authority to speak for Earth, but any final agreements would require Council approval. It was not perfect, but it was a start. While Earth debated, the Galactic Council convened in a massive space station orbiting the galactic core. The station was ancient, built thousands of years ago by species long gone. It housed representatives from every major civilization, thousands of beings with different shapes, languages, and cultures. The chamber where they met was enormous, with platforms arranged in circular tiers that stretched up into darkness. Commander Theln stood before the assembly, presenting her report. She described Earth, humanity's development, and their unusual response to first contact. She emphasized their rapid advancement and their refusal to immediately accept Council membership. The chamber filled with murmurs. Some delegates were curious, others were skeptical, many were simply annoyed. Councillor Dren of the Talorian Federation was the first to speak. He was an old diplomat, having served the Council for over a century. He argued that humanity's reluctance was understandable but irrelevant. Every emerging species needed guidance. Council existed to provide that guidance. Earth should be brought into the fold immediately, before they developed dangerous habits. Councillor Myra of the Syndral Collective disagreed. She represented a species that valued isolation and self-determination. She argued that humanity had survived for thousands of years without Council interference. Perhaps they should be left alone to continue their development. Forcing them to join could breed resentment and instability. Other voices joined the debate. Some saw humanity as a potential threat, a species developing too quickly without proper oversight. Others saw opportunity, a new market for trade or a source of fresh ideas. A few simply saw another bureaucratic headache. The Council had been dealing with emerging species for millennia. Most followed predictable patterns. Humanity clearly did not. Orven, Theln's science officer, was called to provide additional analysis. He had spent weeks studying every piece of data they had collected about Earth. He presented his findings with academic precision. Humanity's technological curve was abnormal. Their scientific breakthroughs came in sudden bursts rather than steady progression. They had weaponized concepts most species abandoned as too unstable. They built machines that pushed the limits of physics, not through calculation but through trial and error. More troubling was their history. Humans had been at war almost constantly. They had developed nuclear weapons and nearly destroyed themselves. They had created biological weapons, chemical weapons, and countless other ways to kill each other. But they had also shown remarkable cooperation when facing external threats. They were capable of both incredible cruelty and profound compassion. Orven concluded that humanity represented something the galaxy had not seen in a very long time, a species that developed in complete isolation, without guidance or interference. They had no concept of galactic norms, no understanding of how things were supposed to work. That made them unpredictable and potentially dangerous, but it also made them innovative and adaptable. The Council debated for days. Finally, they reached a decision. They would send an official delegation to Earth, led by Ambassador Kale. He was known for his ability to bring reluctant species into the Council. He had done it dozens of times before. The delegation would offer humanity full membership with all the benefits and responsibilities that entailed. If humanity refused, there would be consequences. Ambassador Kale was a tall, thin being with pale green skin and eyes that seemed to see through people. He had served the Council for 200 years and had never failed to secure membership from an emerging species. He viewed the mission to Earth as routine. Humans might be unusual, but they were still primitive. They would see reason once they understood what the Council could offer. The delegation departed for Earth with a fleet of diplomatic vessels and an escort of peacekeeping ships. It was meant to show goodwill, but it was also a demonstration of power. The Council wanted humanity to understand what they were dealing with. Cale was confident this would be resolved quickly. He had handled dozens of these situations. Earth would be no different. 3 weeks later, the Council fleet arrived in Earth's solar system. They transmitted their intentions ahead of time, requesting a formal meeting with Earth's leaders. The response came within hours. Earth would receive them. The meeting would take place on a neutral space station that humanity had hastily constructed in orbit. Cale was impressed by the speed of construction. The station was crude but functional. It showed that humans could mobilize quickly when necessary. He boarded with his staff, expecting the usual mixture of awe and eagerness from a species meeting the Council for the first time. Instead, he found something different. Cole waited in the station's main chamber, flanked by Admiral Lawson and Dr. Grant. Behind them stood representatives from Earth's major nations, all carefully chosen for their diplomatic skills. The chamber was simple, with a large table and chairs designed to accommodate various body types. When Cale entered, Cole stood and offered a formal greeting. Cale returned the greeting with practiced ease. He introduced himself and his delegation, then launched into his prepared speech. He spoke of the Council's history, its achievements, and the benefits of membership. He described the protection Earth would receive, the technology they would gain access to, and the opportunities for trade and cultural exchange. He made it sound generous, almost charitable. Cole listened politely, making notes but saying nothing. When Cale finished, there was a pause. Cale waited for the expected response, the questions about how to apply, the eagerness to begin the process. Instead, Cole simply thanked him for the information and said Earth would need to consider the terms. Cale frowned slightly. He explained that there was nothing to consider. Council membership was the natural path for all spacefaring species. The terms were standard, refined over thousands of years. They were not negotiable. Earth simply needed to accept them and begin the integration process. Admiral Lawson spoke up. She thanked Cale for his clarity and then delivered Earth's position. Humanity appreciated the Council's offer. They recognized the benefits of membership, but they could not accept the terms as presented. Earth was willing to engage with the galaxy, establish diplomatic relations, and participate in trade. But they would not disarm, they would not submit to external governance, and they would not surrender their sovereignty. The chamber went silent. Cale stared at Lawson as if she had spoken in an alien language. He repeated that the terms were not negotiable. Every species accepted them. It was how the system worked. Earth could not simply pick and choose which rules to follow. Cole leaned forward. He spoke calmly but firmly. He explained that humanity had survived for thousands of years by fighting for their independence. They had overthrown empires, defeated dictators, and resisted countless attempts at domination. They were not about to give up that hard-won freedom now. If the Council could not accept Earth as an equal partner, then perhaps membership was not right for them. Cale's expression hardened. He warned Cole that refusing Council membership had consequences. Earth would be isolated, cut off from galactic trade and protection. They would be vulnerable to any species that decided to take advantage of them. The Council could not guarantee their safety if they remained outside the system. Lawson smiled coldly. She told Cale that humanity understood the risks. They had been preparing since first contact. Earth's defenses had been upgraded. Their weapons had been improved. They had studied craving technology and begun developing countermeasures. They knew they could not win a war against the galaxy, but they could make it expensive. They could ensure that any victory would cost more than it was worth. She added that humans had a saying: they would rather die on their feet than live on their knees. Earth would not be conquered easily. If the Council wanted a fight, they would get one. But if they wanted a partner, an ally who could bring fresh ideas and perspectives, then they needed to treat humanity with respect. Cale was stunned. In 200 years of diplomatic service, no species had ever spoken to him this way. Most were grateful, eager to join the galactic community. A few were hesitant but eventually came around. None had ever threatened the Council. He stood abruptly and told Cole that he would convey Earth's position to the Council, but he warned them to reconsider. The Council did not tolerate defiance. As Cale's delegation left the station, Dr. Grant turned to Cole with concern. She asked if they had just made a terrible mistake. Cole admitted he did not know, but he knew one thing for certain. Humanity would not bow to threats. They had come too far to surrender now. Cale returned to the council chambers furious and humiliated. He reported that humanity had rejected the standard terms and demanded to be treated as equals. The chamber erupted in outrage. Some delegates called for immediate military action. Others demanded economic sanctions. A few urged caution, but they were drowned out by louder voices. Councillor Dren argued that Earth had to be brought to heel before they became a greater threat. If the Council showed weakness now, other species might follow humanity's example. The entire system could collapse. He proposed a blockade of Earth's solar system. Cut them off from the galaxy until they agreed to proper terms. Councillor Myra stood and spoke against this plan. She pointed out that forcing humanity into submission could backfire. They were clearly willing to fight. A blockade could turn into a war, and wars with emerging species rarely ended well. Even if the Council won, they would create enemies who would resent them for generations. Theln, now promoted to Admiral, was called to testify again. She had been monitoring Earth since her first encounter. She told the Council that humanity was not bluffing. They had been preparing for conflict. Their weapons were still primitive, but they were improving rapidly. More importantly, humans had shown throughout their history that they would fight hopeless battles if their independence was at stake. She added something that made several delegates uncomfortable. Humanity's unpredictability was both their weakness and their strength. They did not follow standard military doctrine. They improvised, adapted, and fought in ways that were difficult to predict. A war with Earth might be quick, but it would not be clean. And the cost in lives and resources might be higher than anyone expected. The Council debated for days. Some wanted to send the fleet immediately. Others urged more diplomacy. The stalemate continued until a senior counselor named Vren proposed a different approach. He was ancient, having lived for over 1,000 years and served the Council for most of them. He commanded respect from all factions. Vren suggested that perhaps the Council was approaching this wrong. Humanity was not behaving like a typical emerging species because they were not typical. They had developed in isolation for reasons no one understood. They had built a civilization without guidance, without help, without knowing they were part of something larger. That made them unique. He proposed creating a new category of membership, associate status. Earth would have representation in the Council and participate in trade and diplomacy. But they would retain autonomy over their internal affairs and defense. The Council would recognize their sovereignty, and in return, humanity would accept observers to ensure they were not developing technologies that posed a galactic threat. The proposal was controversial. Some delegates saw it as weakness, a dangerous precedent that would encourage other species to demand special treatment. Others saw it as pragmatic, a way to bring humanity into the fold without forcing a conflict. After intense debate, the Council voted. The proposal passed by a narrow margin. Theln was chosen to deliver the new offer. She had established a rapport with the humans during first contact. If anyone could make this work, it was her. She accepted the assignment with mixed feelings. She respected the humans but also feared what they might become. Still, this compromise was better than war. Theln returned to Earth alone, without the diplomatic fleet. She wanted to show that this was not about intimidation. She requested a private meeting with Cole, away from the politics and formality. They met in a small conference room on the orbital station, just the two of them. Cole greeted her with cautious respect. Theln got straight to the point. She told him that the Council had been divided over Earth. Some wanted war, others wanted isolation, but a compromise had been reached. She explained the concept of associate membership, outlining what it would mean for humanity. Cole listened carefully. He asked pointed questions about the details, the limitations, the obligations. Theln answered honestly. This was not perfect. Earth would still have to accept some level of oversight, but they would retain sovereignty. They could maintain their military, govern themselves, and make their own choices about their future. Cole was silent for a long moment. Then he asked Theln a personal question. He wanted to know what she really thought, not as a Council officer but as someone who had met humanity first. Did she believe this would work? Theln considered the question carefully. She admitted that she was not sure. Humanity scared her because they were unpredictable, but they also impressed her. They had achieved so much in such a short time. They had survived against impossible odds. If they could bring that same drive and innovation to the galactic community, they might change things for the better, but only if both sides were willing to compromise. Cole appreciated her honesty. He told her he would take the proposal to Earth's leaders, but he also made something clear. Humanity was tired of being underestimated. They were not primitive savages who needed to be civilized. They were survivors, innovators, and fighters. If the galaxy could accept that, they could work together. If not, Earth would go its own way. Theln smiled slightly. She told Cole that was exactly the attitude that made the Council nervous, but it was also why she believed this might work. The galaxy had grown complacent, settled into patterns that had not changed in thousands of years. Maybe humanity's independence was exactly what was needed to shake things up. Cole brought the proposal to the United Earth Council. The debates were intense but shorter this time. Most leaders recognized that this was the best deal they were likely to get. Earth would have a voice in galactic affairs without surrendering their freedom. It was not perfect, but it was acceptable. The vote was nearly unanimous. Earth would accept associate membership in the Galactic Council. They would establish embassies, open trade channels, and participate in diplomatic forums. But they would remain sovereign, independent, and free to chart their own course. It was a compromise, but one that both sides could live with. The official signing took place on the orbital station, broadcast across both Earth and the galaxy. Cole and Theln stood together, representing their respective peoples. The ceremony was simple but historic. For the first time in galactic history, a species had joined the Council on their own terms. In the months that followed, Earth began its cautious engagement with the galaxy. Human ambassadors traveled to the Council station, learning the complex web of politics and alliances. Human scientists collaborated with alien researchers, sharing knowledge and techniques. Human merchants established trade routes, bringing Earth's unique products to distant markets. But humanity never forgot the lessons of first contact. They maintained their defenses, continued developing their technology, and refused to become dependent on the Council. They participated in galactic affairs, but always on their own terms. Some species respected this, others resented it, but no one could ignore it. Cole retired from active service a year after the agreement. He had accomplished what he set out to do. Earth was no longer hidden. They were part of the galaxy now, but on their own terms. He spent his retirement writing, teaching, and occasionally advising the government on alien relations. He never regretted the choices he made. Dr. Grant became Earth's chief xenobiologist, leading research teams that studied alien life and biology. She finally got to fulfill her dream of understanding other forms of life. She worked closely with alien scientists, forming friendships across species lines. But she also documented everything carefully, ensuring that Earth maintained its own scientific independence. Brooks rose through the ranks to become a senior military commander. He oversaw Earth's defense modernization, incorporating alien technology while maintaining human innovation. He never trusted the Council completely, always preparing for the possibility that the compromise might fail. But he also recognized that humanity's future was among the stars. Admiral Lawson continued to serve as Earth's primary military liaison to the Council. She built relationships with other military commanders, learning their tactics and strategies while never revealing all of Earth's capabilities. She believed in the old saying about walking softly but carrying a big stick. Earth would be friendly, but never weak. Theln remained humanity's primary contact within the Council. She advocated for Earth's interests when needed and mediated disputes when they arose. She watched humanity's progress with fascination and occasional concern. They were developing faster than any species she had seen. Their innovations were spreading through the galaxy, changing how things were done. She wondered what the galaxy would look like in 100 years with humanity fully integrated. Years passed. Earth's presence in the galaxy grew stronger. Human colonies spread to nearby star systems. Human influence touched more and more aspects of galactic life. Some species welcomed this. Others resisted. But the galaxy was changing, shaped by a species that had been hidden for millennia. In the council chambers, debates about humanity continued. Some delegates still argued that Earth should be brought under tighter control. Others pointed to the benefits of their independence. Human innovations had improved agricultural yields on dozens of worlds. Human medical techniques had saved countless lives. Human art and culture had enriched galactic society. But there were also concerns. Humanity's military continued to develop rapidly. Their ships were becoming more advanced, incorporating both council technology and their own innovations. Some species worried about what would happen if Earth decided to abandon the compromise and pursue their own agenda. Cole, now an old man, was asked to address the council on Earth's 20th anniversary of first contact. He traveled to the council station, walking through corridors that had once seemed impossibly alien but now felt familiar. He stood before the assembled delegates, representing thousands of civilizations, and spoke simply. He reminded them that 20 years ago, humanity had been alone. They believed they were the only intelligent life in the universe. The discovery of the galaxy had been both wonderful and terrifying. They had been forced to make difficult choices, to stand up for their independence even when it seemed foolish. But those choices had defined who humanity was. They were not conquerors or isolationists. They were survivors who valued freedom above all else. They had learned to work with the galaxy without losing themselves in it, and they would continue to be partners, allies, and friends to any species willing to treat them with respect. He concluded with a simple statement. Earth had been a secret for millennia, hidden behind a barrier no one understood. When the galaxy discovered the truth, they found a species that refused to be anything less than free. That independence had made the compromise possible, and that same independence would shape humanity's future among the stars. The council chambers were silent as Cole finished speaking. Then, slowly, delegates from across the galaxy stood in a gesture of respect. It was not unanimous. Some remained seated, still uncomfortable with Earth's unique status, but most recognized that humanity had earned their place. Cole returned to Earth for the last time. He died peacefully 2 years later, surrounded by family and friends. His funeral was attended by representatives from dozens of alien species, all paying their respects to the man who had guided humanity through first contact. In the years that followed, a saying began to spread through the galaxy. It was passed between older species, those who remembered the time before humanity emerged. It served as both warning and wisdom. The saying was simple. When you find a species that has survived alone in the darkness, do not assume they are weak. Isolation does not breed fragility. It breeds strength. And humanity, hidden for so long, had proven that better than anyone. Earth remained a unique presence in the galaxy, neither fully integrated nor completely separate. They participated in council affairs but always maintained their independence. They traded with alien species but protected their own interests. They learned from others but never stopped innovating on their own. New generations of humans grew up knowing they were part of something larger. Children learned alien languages in school. Families took vacations to other worlds. Human and alien couples fell in love and started families together. The galaxy was no longer strange or frightening. It was home. But those same generations also learned the history of first contact. They learned about the barrier that had hidden Earth. They learned about the choice their ancestors had made to stand firm rather than submit. And they carried forward the same spirit of independence that had defined humanity's entry into galactic society. The secret of Earth's isolation was never fully explained. Despite decades of research, no one discovered who had built the barrier or why. Some believed it was protection, placed by an ancient civilization to shield humanity until they were ready. Others thought it was containment, meant to keep humans isolated because of their potential danger. The truth remained unknown. But in the end, it did not matter. The barrier was gone. Earth was visible to the entire galaxy. And humanity had proven that they belonged among the stars, not as subjects or junior partners, but as equals. They had survived the darkness of isolation and emerged stronger for it. That was the truth the galaxy had discovered. and that truth would shape the future for generations to come.